It's the Bob and Bestie Show. Bob and Kim bring you broadband news in a very serious way on the Broadband Bestie Show.
Today's show is brought to you by Grape Nuts, bringing fiber to every aspect of your life. Here are Bob and Kim.
Grape nuts. Well, maybe I don't love grape nuts, but my family really loves grape nuts. And like Bob said, my mother really loves grape nuts and she loves fiber because she eats her grape nuts with coffee and not milk. It's a lot of fiber.
We've had a lot of subjects on this show that people comment on, but no subject has been commented on more than grape nuts. So we are going to be doing the taste test for grape nuts in a little bit because I've never tried them before.
I'm pretty sure that the reason my parents got married and I am here today is because of grape nuts. So I am a big fan.
Better than a toy in the Cracker Jack box, right? So we've got a big show on the Broadband Besties this week. Ariel Roth, Senate hearings, data centers, fiber, nuclear power, and of course, we're going to try grape nuts.
But let's start. Let's just start here. You know, like last week you were in Philly and I didn't get to make that show and I'm not heartbroken because I didn't have a middle seat on my flight. But what happened in Philly?
Yeah, FBA Regional, Philadelphia, big sold out show. I think they had about 300 people there. It was really interesting. Talked to a lot of folks in Philadelphia, a lot of industry folks, and everyone's sort of saying the same thing. Like they're not seeing projects move forward. Everyone's waiting on BEAD, and there's a growing sense of frustration and restlessness in the industry. We've seen some layoffs, but the only ones who are really building right now are the tier ones, and also data center construction is also pretty popular right now. But tier twos, tier threes, that market is pretty cold. If you're building it and that things are happening, you're probably doing pretty well right now.
I think that is some interesting insight because I think that you are seeing a lot of tier ones, but at least in my world, I think you're starting to see it pick up with more and more of the tier twos come into play right now because I think a lot of people know or are not waiting for BEAD anymore. So I think that's some interesting insight. And while you were in FBA, I was in the great state of Texas at the Texas Expo in Belton, Texas. And if you haven't been to this event, I would encourage you, one, to book your hotel a year early, and two, to go to it. A couple of things that I learned from it is I've never seen tailgating at a convention center, a crawfish boil that I couldn't even get in line for, so I just ended up with barbecue. And what really that conference was super interesting because it had about 2,000 people, and I think I heard this over and over since it's very reasonably and economically economic show where I think it's about $100 to attend. You saw a lot of the operators in Texas who are building and some of the people who are on the ground really making this happen. So it was interesting to have a lot of great conversations, and I might have told a few bad jokes here and there, just a few.
Well, it's interesting how the economics of that show are working out, right? They're getting a lot of people. They're charging not a whole lot. They're not charging a lot for booths or anything. And
Mhm.
it's really become a huge draw.
It's a huge draw. I mean, I think that it was one of the shows that I've had some of the most engaging conversations that I've had, like that I've seen in a long time. And everybody really had this mentality that we're all in this together and we're going to make this all happen.
And of course, Eddie's big gray bar party. How was that?
I did go to the Grape Bar party. I even put on my cowboy boots to go, and it was a great party. I think they had a record attendance, and about 550 people came through the doors. Just great energy, and I didn't dance this year, but I promised Eddie if I go back next year, I'll get on that dance floor.
I mean,
So I'm
I
looking forward
promised
to
him,
it.
told him I was going to go, and then I had to bail at the last minute and felt really badly for bailing on a friend. But I'm so glad it was such a great party.
We didn't miss you, but let's move on. Let's move on. Let's go on to our next topic. And I think that what we saw from the one government employee who's getting hired now and not fired would be Ariel Roth. She had her Senate confirmation hearing last week. What did you think of it, Bestie?
I thought she performed quite well. I like that she was kind to the NTIA staff. You know, we've seen a lot of rhetoric at these confirmation hearings from both parties. And so it was sort of refreshing that the adults were in the room. Not that she said a whole lot, but, look, anyone who's coming to the table with $42 billion to put out onto the street, I like them.
That is a great answer. And before I get to my other situation, I do think that she was balanced and she came across as very knowledgeable in this space. She came across with it. She wanted to cross party aisles. I think those are some really good aspects of her. Because I
Yeah.
think that that is what we need going into the next. But
And
when I asked that,
Gary Bolton at FBA really likes her. They've met with her a few times, I believe, and think she's really, really smart. Even though that she's being a little more tech neutral, Gary's all like, fiber this, fiber that, but I think he really likes her and trusts her.
one, Gary is the CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association, so I think that is a good point he should make. Number two, Gary's not the only person that likes Miss Roth. Bestie.
Yes, Bestie, you have one dream about a nominee, the head of NTIA, and your bestie makes fun of you. About that. She's married though. She's married.
Where do you think she met her husband? Maybe on Bumble?
Too soon, bestie. Listen, I have a crush on anyone who's got 42 billion to put out onto the street. So, yes, me and Ariel Roth, we're gonna be like this.
It's a broadband besties Grape Nuts update.
Okay, bestie, this is what the adoring fans want to know. Will Bob try grape nuts? And I've heard mixed reviews. Some people love them, some people hate them. There's sort of nothing in between. This is what it looks like on the inside. Kind of looks like, dog food or kitty litter. So here we go.
This is the cereal of my childhood. I'm so excited.
We're gonna try grape nuts. Okay. Mm-mm.
They're not that bad. They're not that bad.
How do you guys eat this?
I love I used to eat grape nuts.
It's all making sense.
I used
All
to eat
making
grape
sense.
nuts all as a child. I am part of my family who actually loves some grape nuts. So, Bessie, we have a lot in common, but this is where we differ.
Yeah, but there's a reason why they only sell it in small boxes. Because nobody wants to eat it.
Liberal or MAGA, the rainforest or the Sahara. She's searching for the perfect mate. Time for a Kim dating update.
A song now about my dating life? My dreams have come true.
Amazing, Kim. Amazing. So when we last left off, you had gone out on date number 2, or were just about to go out on date number 2. How did it go? And was there a date number 3?
Well, we're worried about his sanity a little bit because we're about to go on a date number 4.
Whoa!
Crazy. I think it's the clothes I'm wearing, Bestie.
Did you wear a pink blazer on date number 3?
It was a red leather jacket. It's kind of my jam. Don't you know me?
Well, my crush is rocking the pink here.
I do love some pink, but I think the red leather, but it's really burgundy leather. But anyway, dating is over. Let's get back to the business. So
All right.
last week we had a conversation and you were really intrigued by this about what you're hearing about the data center space and power and what that really looks like. So
All right.
tell me more.
So Drew Clark, Broadband Breakfast, held one of his infamous conferences in Washington, D.C. It was data centers, nuclear power, and fiber. One of the many highlights of this show, not only did I get to sit next to Walt Donovan from Dicom, one of my favorite people in the industry, but they were jackhammering on the floor above us during the entire conference, so we couldn't hear the speakers. But it's a true
Isn't
story.
it in a restaurant? Isn't it in the like Clyde's?
Yep, yep. You know, in
Okay.
true Drew Clark fashion, he made sure to book it in a construction zone.
Gosh,
But
we love Drew. It just happens.
the content was phenomenal. I thought it was one of the best conversations that I've um, uh, taken part of. So what was really interesting is, you know, fiber isn't really part of the conversation when it comes to data centers. I know our industry thinks it is, and we're like, yeah, fiber, more fiber, right? But they're not thinking about fiber at all. They're like, oh yeah, we just hook up the fiber, right? They're thinking, how do we power these suckers? And so it opened a wider conversation about nuclear power and how do we get enough energy to power all these data centers that we need, the infrastructure that's going to continue to power our economy. So one of the solutions are these sort of small portable nuclear reactors, like the size of a trash can, that they're innovating now that might be showing up in communities. So there's going to be all sorts of community issues, as you know, but you know, in order to power these data centers, which take up so much energy just for the cooling, we're going to need to, really look at nuclear, which is both inexpensive and clean.
So I want to question that. Like, I just want to question you. Are we seeing this influx of data centers um, right now because the broadband space has been slowing down because of some of the BEAD issues? Or do you think that we're going to see the expansion of this data center really continue in the next few years? Because I think that we will, personally. I think that the broadband space is going to pick up, and I think the data center space is still going to skyrocket. But just curious of your opinion.
It's a really good question. I don't think it's an or, I think it's an and. I think the data centers are going like the hyperscalers, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Google. They need them like crazy. They're building like crazy. But there's also the co-location spaces. Those are, sort of smaller data centers, maybe in the community or at the edge of a network. And it's like hospitals, schools, they're all putting, their servers in those. But even companies like Microsoft and such, I'm hearing stories that they're just going into these co-location centers and they're just leasing the whole things out, just because the growth is just so exponential. So I think a lot of folks in the broadband space who are looking at, hey, how do we make payroll in between, BEAD coming out and BEAD not coming out and then maybe coming out again, are really, moving into the data centers. Everyone's sort of become an expert in data centers all of a sudden. So we'll see how that shakes out. Who's truly an expert over time and who's not.
It's kind of how many people entered the broadband industry when the infrastructure bill was passed. It's the same thing. When they see that there's money, they run. But how many people can actually execute, I think is the question.
Right. It's like we saw that in the marketing space, right? Like everyone started hanging a shingle, like, oh yeah, we're doing broadband marketing, right? And then, when the going gets tough, they all disappear. And only the veterans really last. So I think you'll see that in the data center space. Although I don't see a ceiling in this anytime soon. It's just moving, moving, moving.
So as we close this down, Bessie, since you both just called us both salty, and I thought we were both 25 still, we're still here in the broadband space, and we are so lucky that you guys have joined us and even made it this far in this flipping show. So
And even luckier that none of you are eating this crap.
well, what if there are? I have some grape nuts in my other office since my home is under a remodel, but I will be eating those later, Bestie. So send your open box to me and we will have them. I will enjoy them and cherish them. But until next time, everyone, thanks for joining Broadband Besties.